In this week's episode of Wrenchin' Redneck, we finally get the Camaro and take it out for its first ever drive on the open road. Everybody's been asking about this thing, so I figured I better start getting back to it. And we got a couple problems we need to address. One, she's leaking trans fluid everywhere. I'm pretty positive that it's going to be on the AN line fittings going into the trans, potentially the trans cooler. But the first thing we're going to start with is getting this thing up in the air and figure out how to stop this leak, because I'm tired of it leaking all over my shop. So let's get the jack stands. Good thing I got the heavy duty jack. All this new weight in the front all of a sudden. Yeah, we'll put you right about there. Alright, so I thought this might be the case. Turns out the pan gasket is leaking. I've had this issue before on my square body Cummins. Apparently Black RTV, don't recommend. It did not seal very well and it pretty much peeled right off, causing leaks. So that's all cleaned up. This should hopefully fix our leaks. And then we'll figure out how to mount these trans lines up a little bit better. Let's go ahead and bolt this thing back in. Alright, got our wiring wrapped up here. Don't mind the white electrical tape, that's all I could find. 3 wires to control a full manual valve body. 1 for 12 volts, 2 to ground out our lockup solenoid and our overdrive. So that way we have all 4 gears.
Did you just...
What'd you say?
Plug it in, plug it in.
I could have probably jacked the car up a little bit more. Have some room down here. Alright, we got our plug in, and I got 3 wires with tape on them that are labeled. So 12 volts, that would be our red wire.
I kind of wish our shop cat would show up and just assault you right now. You're in such a vulnerable state.
Alright. She coming to assault me?
Possibly.
Oh no, hurry up.
You're on the clock now.
Get out of here. I'm working. I got yellow and brown. So I just gotta remember which color is my overdrive, what color is my lockup. Huh. Well, that's not what I was expecting.
What do you mean?
The fan harness is supposed to have a plug in it so I can plug and make life easier, but it doesn't, so this is not going to work for me, which is fine. Alright, I'm going to go up to the top, finish drilling our holes for our switches. Here we go. Went ahead and just wrapped up our switches. We got our lock up there and our overdrive right behind the shifter. Should work out. I need to attach that ground for those switches to ground out the transmission, and then add 12 volts keyed ignition. Before I do that, I need to get a battery put back in this thing, and I have been fighting to shove a battery back in the original location, but I'm gonna go ahead and just relocate the battery to the trunk to try and add some more weight back there, because all our weight is up front. And I'm going to do that with essentially these, just going to bolt these in here for all our power wires, and then I will run battery cables all the way to the back of the car. I'm just curious to see if she'll fire up again. It's been a hot minute. Well, she made it home on the trailer, and as you might notice, the hood is up because I went to start it to drive it off and we had no luck. Now, issue 1, which I'm not entirely sure the cause of this, but our starter will not turn the motor over. It doesn't matter how many batteries I have. I basically have a positive and negative block there. I had my jump pack there. I had dual batteries in the trunk with a truck and jumper cables going to those batteries, and it still would not turn over. It would barely crank the motor, so I went ahead, I bought a brand new starter. We got that on, and it still seemed like it was struggling. Now, you might notice I have some giant cables here. This is what I put on like my Monte Carlo and my Camaro. This is 4-gauge wire. I've never had a problem, but you can see the size comparison from our 0-gauge to our 4-gauge there. A couple guys have told me that I had to run like 2-gauge for the diesel motor. Lesson learned there, get bigger battery cables if you're doing a diesel swap. I got the camera crew out here. Tell you one thing, this car has managed to cut me more than any other vehicle I've ever worked on. Doesn't matter if it's the hood, a rusty frame, or what, but man, I am just bleeding like crazy on this thing. We have the new cables up here. A little bit more of a pain given the thickness of them, but we got her. Super important, if you're going through the body, make sure to use rubber grommets, so that way when, you know, they move or whatever, it doesn't cut into your wire and cause a short or anything weird like that. So you could say we're professionals. I still need to kind of tidy up above the rear end, so that way these are all tucked in and out of the way. Throw a couple more of these on to hold the wires up to the chassis, and we should be good.
Can I try and get in here?
Sure. Hey, that window needs some cleaning.
I'll get all the cleaning stuff.
Alright. Uh-oh, where'd the other one go?
Oh, I think... I broke my knee.
You broke your knee? I hope not. We'll see you guys tomorrow, and hopefully we can get this thing fired up and off the trailer finally here. Because I actually brought the car back to the shop this morning. We got a car show tonight in Ames that I'd love to take this car and kind of show it off a little bit and see how it officially drives on the road. We need to wire up fans and install our new 4-core aluminum radiator. I really hate putting this in and testing it because it's such a tight fit. I'm worried about poking a hole in it. And trip the breaker in 3, 2, 1. Never fails. Off of it to allow for maximum flowage. Much better. Took off about 2 inches. Almost think I could make that work. Let's pull the radiator out, get this slid on, see how it works. Really kind of impossible to work in here, but this essentially needs to go down about another inch to make it work, and it is extremely tight in there. Alright, we got our radiator hoses all finished up. Now for the official see if it leaks anywhere. I've never really had coolant in this car yet, so we'll find out pretty quick, I'm sure. The only thing I'm really kind of concerned about is I remember seeing where it looked like coolant leaked out of the front of the motor, right where the cylinder head meets the block. Could be meaning of a bad head gasket maybe. Just in the meantime, have our alternator wire routed over here to where we have a positive block, and I'll just tie it into there. Should charge the system just fine. And then we can put our intercooler pipe back in. We're getting close, getting real close. Alright, did a little wiring off camera. We got the alternator wired up to a voltage regulator Now we are working on installing hood pins because the factory latch does not work anymore. So got that one done. This one, I'm kind of doing it a little dirty. Basically, I drilled a hole through, I mounted our stud. I got these push button ones. These are amazing. I will forever use these anytime I ever have to. A lot of my cars have the pins, or my Monty has one where you gotta stick like a special tool to unlock it. For a race car, that really sucks if you gotta get the hood off fast. Let's say you have an engine fire or something weird. It's like 5 minutes to get the fiberglass hood off my race car. This one, you just push the button, it pops right up. Super simple. So we mounted our stud here. I'm gonna push our hood down and actually try and mark it with this paint marker, which isn't the easiest thing in the world. Get paint marker all over me. We have our mark there. Now I use my drill bit, drill a small pilot hole up through the entire hood. And with these ones, it's like essentially a ball, so you don't have to get it, dead nuts perfect. You can get it close and it'll usually push down and latch in place. Now I just take some of my Menards hole saw bits and so far, smells like stuff's burning. Other than that, it's driving. Battery is charging. I don't think the temp gauge or anything is working. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. She is almost home. The burning smell went away, so that's either good or bad. The brakes are working. Can't say I've tested those really. Somebody's a little excited today. Now this is my kind of car. Apparently he wants 20 grand for the thing. Pass.
The Lambo has nothing on you.
Car show is over. We're gonna go out on the road and do a little bit more driving and enjoy this thing. And hopefully not break down. Hopefully I got enough gas in it. I tried to use the big diesel pumps. Doesn't fit in the stock gas cap. And then I tried to use the normal diesel pumps that you go to the regular gas station with your pickup. Those still don't even fit in. So I gotta fill this thing with gas jugs currently. Now we got some really bad train tracks here. I got plenty of clearance on the oil pan, but it still just makes me nervous going over bumps. The lockup and overdrive switches are pretty gnarly in this thing. You can hear it lock down once we get up to RPM here. We got lockup. There it locks. Overdrive is wild. kind of a big day. We need to pull the cylinder head, get it to the machine shop as quick as possible because we need a new head gasket. It's leaking. I just drove it 10 miles and you can kind of see it leaks around the corner of the head right there. So my plan is we're gonna try and take this head off and do as minimal work as possible. I'm just gonna try and set everything off to the side so I can get the head off as quick as I can, because I'm trying to pull a favor with the machine shop. Basically just make sure we're flat. I was gonna fire ring it and everything, but for this summer, I wanna drive this thing and enjoy it, put some serious miles on it, hopefully. And I've heard that fire rings aren't the most reliable thing for daily drivers with high, miles. And we're not running stupid power here yet. So that being said, let's start tearing this thing apart. Quick update, making a ton of progress in literally the matter of minutes. I think I can get this off in under an hour. These 12 valves are so simple, honestly. Like, I got the fuel lines pulled off, the intake. Pretty much need to get a couple of the lines off the top, drain our coolant, pull the radiator hose. I'm gonna try and hopefully undo the manifold and just let it sit off to the side. And honestly, unless I'm missing something, I think that's it. I should probably pull the injectors, just given that if they do have to mill the head, if it's not flat or if it's happened to be warped, which I'm hoping for the best there. All right, got the head off. Thing weighed 300 pounds. Definitely found out why our head was leaking. Right there on the corner. So water jacket, she's leaking right there. So yeah, a little grimy in there. Got the head loaded up in the back of the Farmerado, the old shop truck. And honestly, like, I power washed it so she's nice and clean, but it looks pretty decent inside this motor. Like, she might have actually been well cared for in the past time. Just take it right down to the valves.
Oh, I don't want to do that.
Oh, all right, don't listen to me. She has serious low spot in the middle. A few more passes, she'll be good. So we just got back from the machine shop and they got our head machined. Don't mind the compressor in the background, but check this out. She looks great. There was a pretty much giant low spot right in the middle, and then kind of around our water jackets there. There was corrosion and stuff, and they just felt safer of taking a couple layers off of her, smoothing her out, as well as machining fire rings around this. Now, I'm no Dodge expert because this is the first one I've ever really worked on, but here's what fire rings are. For those of you that don't know, essentially we have our head gasket, which we used a tool to punch a hole out in each cylinder of the head gasket. And what that allows for is for these rings to sit in here, and they essentially crush through a pretty extensive process of torquing this head down with these ARP head bolts. And that just provides a much stronger seal as far as running way more boost and stuff through this motor. I've read that they can't be the most reliable for like daily drivers, but I think for the amount of miles we'll really put on, I don't know if it'll be an issue or what, since I don't know. I've never had experience with them. So we got that going on there, as well as we are getting our block prepped for the head gasket. Now this is new to me. The machine shop told me this is what I need to use. I've always used like an air sander with like a 3M bristle brush type deal that I was sold to years ago from a tool truck. I can't say I've ever had problems with them, but they swore by this, so this is what I'm gonna try this time around and hope for the best luck. We just gotta find, whoa, forgot that's on. We got a fine grit sandpaper there, and we're just gonna move real lightly over this and try and work around the dowel pins because I can't get those out. I don't have new ones. So yeah, let's get this cleaned up, and then we will be ready to set our head gasket on first, position our rings above each cylinder, and then we can very carefully set the head down and make sure those rings center in those grooves of the head. So let's start cleaning her up. There we go, we're looking real good. And this is what I was talking about earlier of what I used to use. A 3M roll lock disc. I always use the white ones, and usually I'd have them on like a 90 degree and use high RPMs, don't put too much pressure. And I've had great luck, I guess, in my case. And I've mostly worked them with iron blocks, aluminum or iron heads. Never had much issues, but I do like the idea of this being, you know, straight, flat. Don't get too aggressive with it. Like, you know, it still looks like stuff's here, but I took a razor blade and it's as smooth as could be. So I think I'm gonna call that good. I'm gonna clean up around the dowel pins just a little bit since it was tough to get in there with this and being in the car and, you know, stuff being in the way. She should be pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead, take the air hose, some microfibers, and pretty much just clean out our cylinders, blow out all our threads here, and we should be ready to put the head gasket on. Well, I really wish I had a cherry picker here. I suppose I could probably use the forklift over there. But I don't know how easy it's gonna be to lower this and align it by myself. But we got her off the ground onto the front of the car. I'm gonna attempt to crawl in here and put that there. This is either gonna go one or two ways. Just fine, or I'll be calling for some help because I can't get up. Alrighty, it is the next day here. It's Monday, and we got our last parts from the machine shop just because I didn't have a chance to pick them up Friday, which is our rocker pedestals. Now, for running head studs in these motors, because of clearance issues, you have to have these milled down, and you can kind of see the step there where they have to machine basically this out. This was flush with the top. What that essentially does is you run into clearance issues with your valve covers and maybe something else. I'm not entirely sure, but it's what I've been told that needs to be done to make this happen. So now that we got these, we can slap these on, put our push rods back in the block, and finally get our studs fully put in this head, so that way we can go through the sequence of crushing our fire rings first, and then we'll do the final ARP recommended torque sequence on this head. So let's get to work. All right, we went ahead, got our rockers put in place. I got our intake and exhaust valves loosened up because we will need to set valve lash on those. I have our assembly lube on the threads of our ARP bolts there. Now I'm at the position where I need to put the lube on all our studs, as well as the washers, bottom side of our nuts as well. And then we might be able to finally torque this thing down and hope it all goes well. There we go. First torque sequence down per instructions. I'll go ahead and just let that sit for 5 minutes. Just kind of give it time to do whatever, you know, go grab a drink. Then I'll come back, hit the second. I think I'm gonna do this in 4 steps. Spec calls for 3, but it doesn't hurt to do a real light one first just to make sure that those fire rings kind of slide into their spot on the cylinder head. So technically I'd say I'm still kind of doing 3. The first one I did to like 25 foot-pounds, so it's really not much at all. The next ones we'll do like 65, 90, and then the final torque sequence, which is 125 foot-pounds. It was wild. When I pulled this head, there was hardly any effort in pulling the head bolts. So I don't know if that was worry, but they did tell me that this was a virgin head. It's never been machined or anything like that. And actually, when I pulled the last head bolt, the head popped up off the dowel pins that are in the block. I've never seen a head do that before, so that was pretty wild. It could just go to show, you know, it had that weird bow in it like it did. So I'm glad we got that fixed. And this will be one thing I don't have to worry about. We'll just have to worry about not snapping this 10-bolt rear end in half. Because it's definitely going to happen now if I hook up with all the extra power. Going to finish the second torque sequence, then we'll do the third. Then after that, we'll finish on the top of the rocker pedestal bolts. And then we can valve lash. And then we can throw our 3 or 4K governor springs in. I'm still waiting on the other set of valve springs for this motor. So essentially you can pretty much run 3K governor springs with these motors from my understanding without, you know, breaking a spring. But if you put the 4s in, you can definitely break a spring, cause some problems with the valves, bouncing on some pistons, or even worse. So once those springs come in, we'll slap the 4K springs in our pump. We'll be able to rev this thing up quite a bit more than factory, which is like 2300 RPMs. With the 3Ks, I think it's like 3400 and so on. Just to give us more RPM of the motor. Not that I'm gonna need to spin it that high for any particular reason, but it's just kind of long list of things, but very easy to make these motors reliable and relatively cheap. So I also want to give a huge shout out to Arnolds Motor Supply here in Nevada, Iowa, and their machine shop, because without them I wouldn't be doing this, and I probably would have put a head back on that wasn't flat, and we would have had some problems down the line. So I got to kind of watch the process. I'll throw some videos in here now where we basically put straight edge on it. We checked to see if it was flat, which it wasn't. We got to mill the head, and as well as mill our rocker pedestals to clear these studs like I showed. So huge shout out to them to make this possible in a short time frame that we have. So had to pull in a favor there. Let's finish this up and start putting her back together. All right, we got our valves lashed, slapped on the manifold, the turbo, oil feed, oil drain line. Now I'm gonna work on our intake there, because that's actually where our nitrous system goes. And I have that sitting right here. So this is a dry shot. Basically we're gonna drill a hole, TIG weld that into this pipe. We'll be in business for some nitrous. Hey, we got a nitrous port. Now we will hit the old on switch on the Lincoln and see if I can't melt this pipe in half. I can't say I've ever had much luck or experience at all welding thick aluminum to thinner aluminum, but let's see how bad we can make it look. Well, that's about as ugly as can be. Oh well. Good thing I'm a powder coater, so I can cover it up. Now, what I need to do is we need to get into our fuel plate, as well as changing out the springs on our pump, which is tough to see, but there's a giant cap right there. Pull that out, and there's springs in there, and that's what allows us to get more RPM out of the motor and not have it defuel on. That's probably the most important, and then we can turn up the fuel as well. All right, she's starting to look like a motor again. Got the valve covers on, intake. Cerakoted our fuel lines last night. We powder coated a lot of our intercooler piping since that was never done. and cracked the injector line. We got fuel to there. So now we're gonna try and get this thing fired up so we can bring it up to temperature, shut it down, and then pull this back off and retorque our studs, and we should be good to wrap this up. What we want to do is just get the engine oil up to temperature a little bit. That way we shut it down, do our 3 torque sequence on the head. We should be good for about a week, and then I'll need to do it again. So, while we're on, we'll get back to it. I gotta say, I am absolutely shocked at how much I've noticed that the nut turned on the stud on the 125 torque sequence now. Like every single one has moved a little bit. So goes to show, when they say do something, do it. Because I've put head studs in vehicles before, torqued them once, and never had problems, but I don't know, kind of makes me question if I should have did it a second time after a while. So I'm on the last 4 bolts. I had to take a break because it felt like my arm was going to break off. And we can finally put this thing back together for good, get a radiator in it, and then go hit the road and make some rips. Just when I think I'm done cutting this car up, I'm not. I probably never will be. So I'm trying to get the radiator in right now with our electric fan set up. And let me show you what's happening. Yeah, so we've pretty much cut the majority of the core support out there. Now I know everybody's gonna be like, oh, what if you get in a head-on crash? Yeah, well, I got that in front of me to save me. We are touching there and there. So I am gonna need to somehow get this intercooler shifted. Probably the farther forward the better. Looks like I got a couple things. I got bolts right there on both sides that are pretty much preventing me from moving it this way. I got plenty of tubing on both sides to be able to move it back, and we'll just have to cut our mounts there and reconfigure some mounting for it, but such is life. This is how it goes with wild projects like this, and enjoy it. So pretty much out of time today. Tomorrow we'll pick up, figure out how to move this intercooler. All right, it's the day before we leave. I just finally added water to the cooling system. Immediately started leaking. So it turns out our water pump was leaking out of its weep hole right there. So we got a new one on, and we're back in action. Now I'm trying to hook up all our gauges. Oh, look who just showed up.
No more leaks. It ain't gonna leak.
Hope you're ready to work, because I'm not finished yet and we leave tomorrow morning.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. We'll just keep fashionably late is all.
Yeah. I'm getting real close. Pretty much I'm just finishing up wiring on it. The gauges, my nitrous fittings came in there at the house. That'd take 5 minutes to put on. But no more coolant leaks.
I mean, that's a plus. That's
Yeah.
what you go for.
So yeah, other than that, the only thing I'm kind of fighting with the gauges right now is I can't find the original temp sensor wire. And I'd really love to have temperature sensor. That's probably the most important one to have.
Yeah.
You know, if you quit dropping the sockets underneath the car, you get more work done.
I know, right?
So I got Jeff working on our kill switch with the 12 valve Cummins. They have an electronic solenoid that basically turns the fuel on and off. That's how these motors start up and shut down. Well, I've never had much luck with those solenoids. Probably Amazon specials is why. So we're going full manual. Basically, it's like a choke lever that'll be on the inside. So when I pull the choke out, it should fire up, push it in, it'll shut off. It's reliable. I know when I move that, it's going to move that and shut the motor off or turn it on. So he's kind of trying to get that to work. I am on the inside trying to wire up all our gauges, which is looking like a disaster, but you know, I'll get her cleaned up. We got our EGTs, make sure we don't melt the piston, trans temp, make sure we don't melt the trans, and boosts, just to, you know how much power we're making. So pretty much got her down to 4 or 5 wires there. Then these will be wired up, and then all I gotta do is run our sensors to our engine. So we're getting there. There's not much to do, but it's just kind of tedious work when it comes to wiring. Still haven't found that socket, huh?
No.
We got our fans wired up officially. We got our boost line ran into there to the gauges. And now Jeff just drilled a hole in my exhaust and he's tapping it for an EGT probe. We're getting close. Did I tell you this car doesn't have brakes yet?
Or forward, or reverse.
I got 4 neutrals. But hey, the gauges work. Now for the most important thing. Nitrous.
Helium.
We got that in without breaking it. Oh, what else have I done? Oh, I'm working on the RPM gauge. I got 3 black wires, so I'm trying to figure out. We got a 12 volts, a ground, and then signal wire to that. So we are just about wrapped up with this thing, and I still haven't drove it. It should be fine. It's got to be.
It'll be fine.
As Junkyard Diggs would say.
It ain't fixed, it's different.
Yep. Well, we tried to wash it. We got the temp gauge hooked up. Radiator bolted on tight. It's full of diesel. There's only one thing left to do.
Now has the seal of approval. Ah, shit.
We're golden. Let's go get some lunch.
High performance. Yeah, let's do it.
This thing just drives too good. Cruising, 180 degrees. EGTs and boost gauge do work. And you drive straight down the road. Well, we just drove 23 miles. Pretty uneventful. This thing is just cruising great. Any complaints?
It really is. It really, I mean, it's you look at it and you think there's no way this thing works.
Yeah.
And you ride in it and it's like, man, this thing works well.
Yeah, it's really loud at idle when you're just sitting here, but like once you're on the road and everything, it quiets down. You can have the radio on, talk like normal inside. It's not bad. Other than we blew that boot this morning, no issues, no leaks so far.
Maybe one little drip, but
Yeah, I noticed this factory clamp isn't, very ideal, so I'm gonna swap that out. And I think the kink in the heater hose back there's maybe causing restrictions for flow, but other than that, I'm liking it.
it really doesn't even smell hot.
Oh man, you put my dipstick in upside down.
I did that just to fuck with your OCD.
Let's go get some barbecue. Well, we made it back to the shop with the Camaro. Really, the drive went just super easy. This thing drives amazing, and it was pretty just uneventful. Like, we had an intercooler boot blow right away when I first hit like 22 pounds of boost, but I think I had a clamp mixed up, so we got that fixed. The other issue we have is the shifter. Now,
I put a different shift cable and tried to make it work with the stock shifter. The issue I have is when I'm in park and I bring it down to number 2, because this is a 3-speed, so we just don't use this one. When I bring it down to first, it works fine. But after you work through the gears into your 3rd gear, essentially, and let's say you come up to a stop sign, when you bring it back down to first, it's like it's not fully going into 1st gear. It stays in 2nd gear. I made a little bit minor of adjustment to the cable, and so now if I go to neutral and bring it back, it goes into 1st gear. So I have a little bit more room on my adjustment screw that I need to get the car up in the air, and we should be able to fix that. But other than that, like, it's just an absolute incredible driving car. We put about 100 miles on today, and we got back here, filled it full of diesel, and we put about 4.5 gallons of diesel in it. So this thing's getting like 21 miles a gallon, you know, 22 miles a gallon roughly, which is just mind-blowing, to say the least, for what this thing is. We have a car show next weekend in State Center that Quick Performance is hosting. So we're taking this because at the end of the show, they are having a burnout pit, and we are going to enter, see how this thing does. We'll see you next time.